No story should ever go untold. Today, we're sharing special stories of people who have left us over the years and those who have left us, especially during this period of COVID. During this season, the Lord began to speak to my heart, and I asked the question, Lord, how will we remember those whom we have not had the opportunity to celebrate personally by gathering and having the wonderful celebrations of life that we are so used to having? The Lord said to me, gather the people and allow them to tell the story. And then allow those who have triumphed even in life and recovery to share their story. Everyone's story is important. And this particular vision was one that we shared with our ministry here in the church. And I'm thankful to those who have put it together so that we could allow people to tell their stories, especially during this time of social distancing and time when we could not be with one another. We are still having the opportunity to let our hearts speak about our loved ones. I have so many stories of so many loved ones to share with you. Each and every member of First Baptist Church Broad Avenue is special to me. I asked the Lord many years ago when I became the pastor of this church to not let me have moments where I would stand and speak and not have some personal encounter with those individuals that I might have something special to say at their celebration of life service. So I believe the Lord has blessed us to have intimate and personal relationships where we have been able to share in each other's stories. I'm thankful today. This is a wonderful opportunity. I ask that you would sit back and listen to the stories because no story should go untold.
I'm Minister Georgia Collins, and my story is about my nephew and my sister. My nephew was a pretty cool guy. He was a flashy kind of guy. He loved flashy clothes, flashy shoes. He even loved flashy cars. His hobby was customizing cars. Funny story about my nephew when he was a little kid. He stayed with me a lot. And I would always tell them, if you go outside, you can't come back in. So this particular day, my nephew was outside playing, and he knew he couldn't come in the house. And he had to use the bathroom. So he just took care of business where he was. And when I went out to get him, I couldn't spank him because it was too funny. Another thing about my nephew, he loved his family, loved his wife and his children. And my nephew would always be the last one to show up at family functions. You could call him every 30 minutes, and he'd tell you, I'm right around the corner. No matter how many times you call him, he's right around the corner. My sister, on the other hand, who died maybe a couple of months after my nephew, and my sister, story about her is she was kind of spoiled, should I say. She lived miles away, but we were still close to each other. And every time my sister would come home, she could talk my daddy into cooking for her. And my daddy was sort of a pro making these old-time tea cakes. And so we loved those tea cakes. But we could only get them when my sister came home. And she would always get daddy to make her those tea cakes. And my sister was, as I said earlier, she was a little spoiled. When she come to town, she'd always bring gifts. But somehow she'd always leave with more gifts than she brought. She could always get all of us to do whatever she wanted us to do. She was quite a girl. She was not the older sister. She was sort of in the middle, but we all kind of catered to her and gave her most of the things that she wanted because she was not here with all of us. So those are my stories about my loved ones.
Hello, my name is Michael Exum, and I'm here to give the testimony of my recovery. As most of you all do not know that I was a cocaine addict for 25 years. And up until about 10 years ago, I decided to go get help at Memphis Recovery Center at the urging of a very dear person who was close to me, Pastor Norman, who gave me a voucher to go. In the past 10 years, I have regained everything that the devil took from me. It can happen for me, it can happen to you. You know, I went from a one room room to having a house. I bought my first car and I have a job that I love. And the miracle about my recovery is that I'm back in the same place where I started to get my healing, and I'm trying to heal other people. So if you anywhere like me, you wouldn't even know me to even think that I was an addict, but it can happen to the best of us. I have 2 degrees. It happened to me. So don't think that just because you see people out that it cannot happen to you. And if you're anybody like me and you want help and you need help, know that there are people around you that can help you and will listen to you and will love you till you learn to love yourself. Once again, I'm the miracle that God put forth for people to see. I might be the only big book that a lot of people see, but I am truly a miracle. I am feeling fine. I'm drug free. And it has been a journey, but it has been a sweet journey. And that's my story.
My name is Dina Jeffries, and today I want to remember my grandmother. My grandmother's name is Sarah Donaldson, and the thing that I remember about her is, first of all, she's the reason for me being a teacher. I was always with her going to school, and one thing that I remember that when I was with her, everybody always had good things to say about her. And so when I think about her, I want to think about her legacy and how she treated people like she wanted to be treated. And when I look at my children, I take those jewels that she gave me, and I want to make sure that I instill that into them. So that's my biggest memory from my grandmother.
Happy holidays. My name is Audrey Renee Williams. My mother's name is Pauline Harris Williams. My mom passed April 19th of this year. First, I would like to thank First Baptist for giving me the opportunity to share the most memorable event that I had with my mom, and that was for her birthday, March 17, 2017, which is St. Patrick's Day. We went down to Savannah, Georgia, where they celebrate St. Patrick's Day in the most biggest way. We actually participated in the parade as if we were a part of it. I would like to say Merry Heavenly Christmas to my mom and Happy Holidays to First Baptist. Thank you.
My name is Giselle Taylor, and the person that I'm remembering today is my sister, actually 2 people, my sister Jessica Taylor Sullivan, as well as my father Charles Chisholm. My favorite memory of my sister, I would say, is just, they lived in Houston, so I would say meeting for once a year for our holiday celebrations with her and the kids, and my mom and my other sister. I think those are the most memorable times for me. And her smile, just to see her walk in the room, she had a smile that would just lighten everybody's mood. I just miss her. She's been gone a year now, and I miss her and I love her, and I just want to let her know that her girls live on and she'll never be forgotten. And for my father, Charles Chisholm, better known by most of his CB friends as Booty Spanker. My favorite memory of him was just when I was little, he used to just let me do anything I wanted to him. He would let me braid his hair and wear ponytails to Top's Barbecue. And then he would also just, in his latter years, he would ride up and down Lundy in his scooter. And he would keep the kids. And I was like, Daddy, did I used to act like the kids? the grandkids, did I act like them when I was little? And he was like, no, you never act like them. And every time he said something, he wanted to put emphasis on what he was saying. He would say, I swear for God, I'm telling the truth. So that's my favorite memory of my dad.
Hi, my name is Cornetia Thrill, and I am remembering my mother, Alpha Perry. And my greatest memory, or rather memories, are of our family dinners. Whether they were just family dinners at our house with her children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, or just any family dinners that we would have with any of our extended family. That was the best time. We were all sitting around talking, laughing, talking about old times, and when I would be in the kitchen cooking with my mother. So my greatest memories are of our family dinners.
Hello, my name is Nikesha Bond, and today I am remembering my uncle, Furman Crisco. My uncle, Furman Crisco, he was a godly man. He lived his entire life for Christ. He served in the service, and one of my most fondest memories of him was at the lowest point of my childhood when I lost my grandmother, and I always had my aunts and uncles around me, helping my grandmother raise me. And you want me to stop?
No, you're good.
Oh, keep going?
Yeah.
Do I have to start over?
Fine.
Oh, okay. And I remember sitting next to him and my Aunt B. And I remember just kind of sobbing. And growing up, we were always told that when someone passed away, that they went to be on vacation with the Lord. And so I remember my Uncle Furman telling me that when you live in Christ and you die in Christ, that Christ gives you an invitation to come and be with him. And that has stuck with me for years. So in finding out about my Uncle Furman's death, I process death a little bit differently now. But in finding out about his death, I try to process it as an adult in that same childlike mentality of he received an invitation from Christ to come and be with him. So that would always stick with me. I love my Uncle Furman. I will miss him when I go back home. But just knowing that because I was raised in Christ and I live for Christ, I'll see him again. And so that's my fondest memory.
My name is Carmen Cedar Powell, and I know people say that 2020 has been a real challenge, but to me, my challenge really started October 18th, 2018, when I was told that my brother had died, was killed. And I say, what brother? I don't have but one brother left. And they said, your brother. And I said, well, he just got out of the hospital. He had been in the hospital for 9 days, and shortly after he had been at home for a few hours, someone broke into his house and killed him. That hurt very, very much. Right now, when I think about him, I just ask God, please reveal who did this to him. Reveal the people that did that, Lord. I just want to know who did it, and for them to be held responsible for what they've done. And so my sister, I had my older sister in March of this year, 1st of March. She died. She had been told a couple of weeks before then, well, they told her that they found something on her lung that they didn't understand. And so they said she might live 6 years, she might live 6 months. But oh no, she lived 2 weeks. They didn't know what it was, but when they said that she had been coughing, we knew then it must have been COVID, but they were not saying anything about COVID here then. So it had to be COVID for her to develop that cough, because she was fine. She just had a problem with her memory. But through it all, I just turned to God through all of these. Everything that happens, I look to him and he helps me. I just remember the things that my brother used to do. He always called me girl. That was his name. Hey girl, come here girl. So I remember good things about him like that. And that helps me through this. And my sister, I always remember her because she was the one that taught me a lot of things. She taught me how to cook. She taught me how to be a responsible adult, because my mom died when I was like 19 years old, and I had a little baby that was 6 weeks old. So I was really a child myself, and I didn't really know how to take care of a child, or I didn't know where my life was going. But God brought me through all of this. Everything that I've done, it makes me happy to know that He is taking care of me. He's a keeper, and I thank Him.
My name is Keith Sanders, and I'm here to talk about the memory of my mother, Lucille Sanders, and her sister, Willie B. Edwards. So actually it'll be 2 years on Friday that my mother passed away. And for me, this time of year last year was really hard, but I'm so thankful. I'm thankful to God because I have so many wonderful memories of my mother, and God has given me and my family so much peace and joy. And it's so true that in your hardest moment, God will meet you. And I just remember that my mother taught me that all of my life. And then this year we lost her sister to COVID, Willie Edwards. And my aunt was like a second mother to me. There were times when I lived with her when my family had to move to Mississippi from Michigan. And she just treated me like one of her own. And so I just want to say to all the people who have lost loved ones during this time or in recent past, that God is good and that I'm hopeful. And that I'm full of joy and peace because of the love of God. And I just want to encourage everybody that in times like this, when you really miss your loved ones, just lean on the Lord, because I'm still happy, I'm still here, and I still have every memory that they left with me and all the values that they instilled in me. And I just want to leave the First Baptist community with that bit of encouragement.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Crenshaw. At this time of year, most every day actually, I remember my mom and my dad, Irma Banks Jefferson and James Banks. This time of year is really special because of the wonderful memories I have of them. And although they are not here with us in person, they're always in our hearts. And as we gather with our loved ones and family, it's so easy to feel their presence. Because of them, we learn to nurture one another through loving words and actions. And even though they're not here today, we remember them and give God thanks for them being in our lives. Merry Christmas.
Yes, my name is Terry Johnson. The one I'm remembering is my grandmother, Roberta Bland. Roberta had seemed like 1,000 grandkids. She ended up with 14 kids, 7 boys, 7 girls, which all had 5 or 6 kids themselves. So she had a lot of grandkids, but she made us feel like we was the only one ever. She was there, she was the support, the backbone of our family, and she's deeply missed.
My name is Marvell Tyson, and I'm remembering my father, Coney Tyson. I would say my greatest memory would be him telling me, maybe a few hours before he passed, that I wasn't God. And the reason I say that is, in 2002, I got blown up in Iraq. I was trying to save my guys, and I couldn't save everybody. So from 2002 until last, till he died, that always bothered me. He always had a thing of trying to help me through that. And the moment before he passed, he said to me, "I didn't know you were God." And that was the most profound thing that was ever told to me through the military counseling, through other counselings I had, that released a bunch off me. And since that moment now, I'm okay with the decisions I made. And that's the greatest memory, profound memory that stays with me.
My name is Charlotte Hardaway, and I would like to talk about someone who's been very influential in my life. I've lost 3 people, my mother, my father, and my sister Wanda. And of those 3 people, my sister Wanda was the last person to pass, September 21st, 2019. I have many memories of my sister, but I would like to share some of the things that I think are so important to her life. And for me, she was one of the best big sisters that a girl could ever ask for. My sister, her name was Wanda, affectionately known as Kay, but today I will refer to her as Wanda. During her lifetime, my sister Wanda was once a very unstoppable force. She was great at everything that she did. Some people even called her Wonder Woman. And it was very funny, but she was a black girl who rocked. As a youth, I always thought my sister was a beautiful brown-skinned girl. She had lots of spunk and tons of personality. Growing into adulthood, there were storms, that raged through her life, but she never gave up. She never gave in. She was a fighter. There were times when the doctor said, "Come and say our last goodbyes," many years ago, and God said no. He stepped in, and my sister fought to come back and to come through something that many wouldn't have ever come through. And I just call her a survivor. Even though her walk was slow due to her health, she would always say, "Wait for me, I'm coming along." She kept going. She didn't stop. And I just considered that one of the greatest things about her. She was a trooper. She was on the side of God, and she believed in the Lord. She loved her family. She loved her children. She was a grandmother. She loved everything about her friends and her family. And that's just one of the things that kept her close to me. I remember all the times that I would be gone, and she would say, "You're always gone somewhere." But she would remind me that she was praying for me and for my safe return every time I would hit the road. Since she has been gone, I'd like to say these few words that I wrote for her. It feels like forever, but it's only been 1 year. I will continue to love you as though you're still near. If you were here laughing with me during the good times and crying during the bad, I miss you calling me, and I know you always prayed for me, and I miss that from you as well. As children, you were older than me, so I would sit and watch as you went about your daily activities, enjoying your teenage years, dancing and singing with your group, playing softball until I was able to catch up. And those were the best of times. I remember those days. They were so much fun. As we grew up, as most siblings do, we had our own set of friends and our own life that we lived outside of family. But that didn't change anything. Our own agenda didn't keep us from being sisters, and we were still there for each other. I will always wish that you were there with me, still here on this side of glory, but I do know that your side of glory looks so much better than I could even comprehend. And because you had such a kind spirit and heart, I understand why God would choose to bring an angel like you by his side. But I do know that I will see my sister again, and I do love her and I do miss her. So Wanda K. Hardaway, I love you. And I just want to say, this is the ornament that the church made for her last year, and I so greatly appreciate it. We're not able to place it on the tree, but I still have it, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My name is Joyce E. Carter. The person that I remember is my nephew, Kevin A. Pettis, and I did also submit a picture with his mom, both of those, but basically I would like to just focus in on Kevin. Kevin, my nephew, 59 years of age at the time of his passing. Young for me, because when I got the call, they said, "Are you sitting down?" I knew then that that meant trouble or something had happened. And when I found out that the call was about his passing, I don't know what I felt or how I felt at that time. But I thank God for all the many, many blessings. And then during this time of the year, it is hard. Any holiday, any birthday celebrations are hard for us because we are a family. And with that, by him living in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the hard part about that was that he died 2 months before he was actually relocating back to Memphis, because he had gone into retirement at that point. He had already put in his papers for retirement and all of that. So that's the part that was so hard to accept, that at 59 he was coming back, had done his stint with FedEx and for 25 plus years, and was coming back home. But you know, home is having a place to go is home, and having someone to love is family, and having both is a blessing. So Kevin, home, he's gone on to his eternal home. Father God has called him home. His love for family, that's what we knew about him. When we celebrated, we knew that that's what it was going to be, a celebration. And having both was a blessing. So I thank God for him. I thank God for his mother and all the other loved ones of mine that have gone on to their eternal home.
Good afternoon. My name is Vanessa Harrington, and I am speaking in memory of my uncle, Elijah Coran III. My uncle was my father figure. He grew up, I grew up in the household with him, and he was such a cut up. He was a fun guy. We always loved being around him. And my fondest memory of him is one day I was in I think it was Methodist University Hospital, about to get a colonoscopy. And I hadn't seen my uncle in probably maybe 15 or 20 years. We had became distant. And so he was in the next bed with the curtain between us. And I was talking to my husband or whatever. And all of a sudden I heard somebody say, "Vanessa." And I said, "Yeah." I didn't expect for anybody to be calling my name, in a hospital. And when he called my name, I recognized his voice. And so then we pulled the curtain, and there he was. He was about to have a pacemaker put in. And from that day on, we stayed in contact. And it was really a blessing from God for both him and me, because he didn't really have anybody. He was living alone, taking care of himself. He's probably in his 50s. But as time went on, he needed someone to help him get to his doctor's appointments, get his medicine, all of those basic things. And so I ended up being the person to do that. And he enriched my life because he had such a good memory. He could remind me of things that happened when I was a child. People, places, things we did. And I just got so much pleasure out of that, just talking with him. And then I was able to kind of reflect back on those things that gave me a lot of joy when I was a child. So I'm gonna miss him dearly. He passed away on August 23rd. And the last thing I wanna say about him is he was in a nursing home. I'm not gonna call the name of nursing home, but I had been, going to see him twice a week and checking on him, make sure everything was okay. But when COVID came, I couldn't do that. But I would video chat him once a week just to see how he was doing. And the week before he died, I spoke with him by video chat. And then the day before he died, the nurse called me to say, well, he's had a turn for the worse, and you might want to come on over and see him. So I went over, and that's when she told me that His leg had turned gangrene. He was in a fetal position, things that they had not told me before that time. And I say that to say this, it's so important to just do the best we can to keep an eye on our relatives, just to know what's going on with them when they're in the hospital and in the nursing home. It was so disappointing to me to see that, they let that happen to him. But, I had no control over it, and I just pray that he went away peacefully. And we were able to give him a small ceremony and bury him. And that was my fondest memory of him, just being Elijah Coran for the last time.
My name is Addie Gwynn. I will be talking about my sister Pearline Linson, who passed last year in March. My greatest memories of her can be described by her name, P, which is for personable. She never met anyone that was a stranger, and she always reached out to people. She was very manable. E, which is encouragement. She always encouraged others. Even when things look bad, she would still be positive about it. A is for availability. She was always available to help. All you had to do was call her. R is reliable. Whatever you needed, she was there to help you with it. And if she said she was gonna do it, she did it. The L is for laugh. She kept you laughing. She was really funny. She could come up with some stories that no one ever heard about. Another thing about her was her ability to cook, and she loved baking. She always tried to get the families together for a holiday. We named her Miss HENIC because she was the one who was always in charge and tried to rule everybody. She gave each one of us a holiday to make sure that we stayed connected and made sure that we got together for family gatherings. Another thing, Pearl enjoyed shopping. She was a dresser. Every time you saw her, she had on something beautiful. A hat, suit, shoes, everything was matching. And I guess the last thing about it was connectability. She could connect you with people that you never thought about. Whatever you needed, she could link you to that person so that you could get the job done. She moved here in 2007 from Detroit. And when she moved here, she just got involved in the church. She was very involved in her church. We call her a missionary because she was always doing something to help people, whether they belonged to the church or not, but she was always in the community doing something. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she worked in the church until she was just too sick to do it. And they wanted to put her in hospice, but she refused, saying that my sisters would take care of me. And we did. We took shifts and went to her home and made sure that she was comfortable and that everything she needed was there. And her last visit to the doctor, she was told that she only had 3 weeks to live. And at that time, she called the family together. She made sure that she had prepared a meal for all of us. And after we had eaten, she called us into the family room and told us that the doctor said it was 3 weeks or less. And he was on target for her death because 2 days prior to the 3-week period, she did pass away. She is greatly missed by all of us because of how she kept the family together. She was the glue that kept the family together. And that part has just truly been missed, as well as not having her here just to be our sister.
Hello everyone, my name is Daryl Charles, and I lost a family member this year back in June. He was a first cousin. His name is Alfred Dempsey Jr. We used to call him Peanut for short. He and I grew up together in St. Louis. we played together, we spent Christmases together, and he became like a brother to me. But as we got older, we kind of went into two different directions. I went to the military and he stayed at home, and he just found a few jobs here and there. And before I knew it, I would come back, at different times to check on him. And he had actually started drinking and started using some drugs, and kind of got to a point where he was addicted, and he couldn't stop himself from drinking. And so we put him in a couple of rehabs, and he didn't make it out of either one of them. We sent him to about 3, and he didn't pass either one of them, but we still continue to pray for him. But I would tell you, in the midst of all of that, he still always called me on a regular basis and told me he loved me. And I would tell him, I love you too, man. And that's kind of the way it was. I mean, we could go for weeks and months sometimes without communicating, and he would call me and just remind me that, he appreciated me and our friendship. And although we're cousins, he just wanted to remind me that he really admired me. And I told him, I said, hey, I said, it's never too late for you. I said, you just have to kind of wean yourself off of that drug, if you will. And he said, yeah, I know, I'm just having a hard time. And then he picked up smoking. And so one thing led to another. And so what happened was he was at home one day here back in June. And they said he was on the front porch talking to some friends, and he kind of backed up, and he was right on the edge of the porch as it was. He kind of backed up, and he took a big nasty fall, fell directly on his back, cracked his spine. And all of this is in the middle of the pandemic. So they rushed him to the hospital. He was unconscious when they got there. He never came out of that coma state. He just passed away, shortly thereafter. But I'll always remember him saying, hey man, I love you, man. We cousins, we're gonna always be together. I said, yeah man, I love you too. And I said, it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better. But he would always, bring up the Lord, and he would always say, I know you don't think I know the Lord, but I do know the Lord. And I said, well, listen, that's the only thing that matters, is that you know him. I said, as long as you, talk to him, get down on your knees and humble yourself. He said, yeah, I know, cuz, I know. I said, well, that's all you got to do. And, accept that Jesus is the Son of God, and said, and you're going to be all right. And he just said, yeah, I know. And so it went, I guess, a couple of weeks before his accident. I hadn't heard from him. And then, I got the news that he had fallen. And like I said, he didn't last much longer after that. But we were able to give him a proper burial and things of that sort. So I'll miss him. And again, when you grow up with somebody, you kind of, you kind of think back on different things that maybe you could have done differently. Maybe you could have helped him in a different way. But I know at the time I did what I could. But I still love him. He was my cousin, and I'm sure he's looking down on us at that time. And that's my story.
My name is Rochelle Landon, and the fondest memory that I have of my mother is when we grew up together, basically, and the fondest memory is when she would say that I was the mother and she was the daughter. So that's the fondest memory that I have of her.
Anything else you want to add?
It's kind of hard. I do miss her, but I am going to honor the promise that I made her, that I would take care of her husband, my siblings, and her grandchildren.
Hi, my name is Candace German. I'm here today to remember my loved ones who has passed in 2020. They're a part of the German family. So between August and October, we lost 6 family members, and I lost my stepmom. Those family members include Roberta Taylor, Rhonda Taylor, Roderick Taylor, Ronrico Green, Cheryl, and Greg. between all of them, they all were a big part of our family. So when they passed, it was a big impact on our family. They were like the life of the party. Just to know that at any event that we had, just to know that they would be there. And with Cheryl, she always was the cook of the family, and she could cook really good. So everybody was looking forward to her cooking. Or you can call her anytime and say, "Hey, I'm doing this," or "I'm doing that," and she was always available. Rhonda, I remember, was like always the person who would encourage you, just with anything, whatever you had going on, or also compliment you. Anytime she see you, it's always, nice compliments, and she's always encouraging you. With Roderick, I just remember he was just always so embracing. Every time you saw him, be like, "Cousin," he'll always want to just give you a big hug. And and Auntie Ro, just know that anytime it was a family function, especially when I was growing up, it was gonna always be at Auntie Ro house. But last but not least, Rico, his death really impacted me. He was just always so positive. Even though he was an in-law, he was just always just really sweet and positive. He was the go-to guy for whenever we needed to rent cars. Anytime you call on him, it was "Say no more, cuz." That was what he used to say to me, or "I got you." And he truly meant that. And he was always mutual. He was always mutual and neutral with everybody. And that's one thing, I will always remember about him. And I'm sorry, I know I said last but not least, but my stepmom, when she passed, it impacted us because it impacted my dad a great deal. And she was a really nice woman, and I just remember her just always being so just so nice, as far as whenever we needed anything, she was always open to me and my brothers or whatever. Even though we weren't her kids, she received us as if we were her kids, and also her grandkids. I mean, my kids, so my dad grandkids. I'm sorry. Can you edit that? Mm-hmm. Okay. But I am gonna miss Miss Ruby, and just miss her Jesus Christ. I done got tied up. Now how you gonna edit this?
Easy.
Okay. Okay, so let me just talk about Miss Ruby, because I feel like I messed up. Miss Ruby, which is my dad's wife, my stepmom, what I'm gonna miss about her is how she kept my dad in check when it came down to us. Whenever, for instance, whenever I needed help with my kids and I called, even though my dad would keep them, sometimes he used to be hesitant, and she'd be like, "Bring those kids over." She never, ever hesitated. And I really, truly miss her, in those regards, and how she was just so open to me and my brothers. She, received us, as her kids, and I'm really gonna miss her as well. So that pretty much sums up 2020. It's been rough on the German family. Please keep us in prayer. We're taking it day by day, and just know that if our family can make it through all of these passings we've had within the last year, you can too, because it definitely takes prayer, love, and just unity during this time. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cassandra Bynum, and I'm here to reflect on how I miss my mom. My mom just passed this year, September the 21st. Not due to COVID, thank God, but she had a stroke. And what I most remember about her is my mom was a very, very, very hard worker. She had 5 girls, and she was a single mom, but she always taught us to work hard, and we'll be able to play hard later. So that's one of the most important things that I remember about my mom. And what I miss the most, what I'm going to miss the most, is her cooking. My mom was beautiful. She was so pretty, but she also could cook. She could cook just as well as she looked. And everybody says that I cook like my mom. So that's what I'm working on. Mom, I'm working on trying to be just like you in the kitchen. And just want to know I miss you, I miss you, I miss you, and I love you so much. And I thank you for being the most wonderful mom in the world. Love you.
Hello, my name is Mary Bohannon, and I'm here to speak of my deceased husband. First thing I can say, we were married. You can say 35 years, 3 months prior to 35 years. And when we first met, he wasn't going to church, and I was going all the time. But like the book of Corinthians said, if you keep on going, you'll draw them. I drawed him, and I wasn't able to stop him after that. He died March 3rd on my daughter's birthday, 2 years ago, coming up 2 years ago. He was a good man, country completely. I was different from him. We was different as night and day, but we made it work. But I remember the things that he taught me while he was living. He taught me a lot of things. He told me one day, Mary, stop begging God for so much and thank him. He left that with me. And that's what I do all the time. I thank God every day because we are in some trying times now. And I also give him praise and glory because since my husband been gone, of course he was helping pay bills. I haven't missed a bill or a meal. So I know it's nobody but God. God is so faithful and he's so good. He said that he would never leave or forsake us or leave our seed begging bread. He said that he will be with us always, even until the end of time. He said all you have to do is ask, believing and having faith, and it shall be. And I believe all of these things that God told us in his word. He is so awesome. We can't find a better God. We can't find anyone to place him. Now I have another husband, and that's my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He's my husband, man. And he hasn't let me down. I thank First Baptist Church Broad for the things that they did in sticking by me when my husband died. I had members to come, to my house on the day of his burial. They stuck by me in the hospital. I even had my Sunday school teacher popped up at the hospital, and the nurse didn't know who he was, and she called me. And I said, I don't know who that is. He went to see my husband, Aaron, but he didn't even know that Aaron was my husband. He just went out there to see him and visit him. And when he got on the phone, he said, I didn't know that was your husband. I said, yes, it is. He said, I used to speak to him all the time, so I decided to come to see him. So you are blessed when you have a connection that draw people and draw godly people. I had a deacon and wife to stick with me through it all. They visit Aaron at the hospital. I don't know if Aaron knew who was there, but I have a feeling he knew. One thing I realized that I had to do, I had to turn Aaron loose. So one day, the Spirit led me to just stand by his bed. and to share with him that I was going to be all right. And I have been all that time. I shared with him that, hey, if God's ready for you and you're ready to go, then I release you. You can go because I'm going to be all right. Because I know in God's word, God said if he feed the birds, you know he was going to feed and clothe you. So I am not in doubt of any of those things that my Heavenly Father has promised me. I know all of us have to leave here, and the worst people off are the people that they leave behind, because sometimes it take so much out of them to release them and to be so joyful that God took them and they didn't suffer too long. Like I say, I think my pastor, I have a wonderful pastor. He's so concerned about other people. Sometimes I worry about him. That's why I pray for him all the time. I pray for him daily, he and his family, because the blood is on his hands. And I know sometimes it get heavy, having as many members that we have in church. But I thank him. I thank everybody in our church. We don't meet a stranger. We are a church that love to love and love to be loved. I thank you. Bless you and have a wonderful rest of the year and New Year.
Hi, my name is Keisha Scales Kelly. I'm a member here at First Baptist Broad. I wanted to talk about my father, Richard L. Scales Jr. He was a veteran in the Navy, U.S. Navy. He passed on August the 10th of this year. And my father was my first. He was my first of everything. He was my first confidant. He was my first boyfriend. He was my first leader, my first mentor. He was the first person that took time to teach me how to drive. When I think about him, it's still kind of fresh, so I still try to not get too emotional, because it's still a process of adjusting to the loss, adjusting to the absence. And I'm learning that loss is not always sad. Loss is one of those things where it gives you time to reflect on that person. I find myself laughing sometimes. I think about some of the jokes that he thought was funny, and you would look at your dad like, okay, that was really kind of corny, Dad, but just to entertain you, I'm gonna laugh. But he always tried to help us find the bright side in everything. One of his favorite sayings was, well, you might as well be awesome. And every aspect of my life, whether it's my business or my personal life, my children, I always try to go in with the attitude of just be awesome. And being awesome is not hard. Being awesome is just being open and honest with yourself. And I thank him for that, because he made a challenge something simple. He made a challenge something that was easy to do if you just was more in touch and in tune with yourself. His favorite snack was Tootsie Rolls. So as of late, he had been in a nursing home. So every Monday, and I still laugh now on Mondays, because Mondays used to be my Tootsie Roll drop. My day I would go and just take him his candy, and just to see his face light up when he saw that Dollar Tree bag coming with his bag of treats, knowing he shouldn't have had them, but it was still one of those guilty pleasures that I truly enjoyed giving to him, sharing with him. That was simply my way of saying thank you. Thank you for being there. Thank you for guiding me, protecting me, teaching me. My father was an awesome leader, and he's always taught me to be the best at what I know to do. And if I don't know, ask for help. And I thank him for that. So on this day, I want to say thank you, and I want to be able to remember my father, Richard L. Scales Jr., a Navy veteran, airplane mechanic, and an awesome husband and father. Thank you.
My name is Reverend Linda Owens. What you want me to say, Tara?
And you mentioned the loved one that you're remembering.
Okay, can I start over?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
My name is Reverend Linda Owens, and the loved one that I'll be mentioning today is Private Brandon Owens, Pamela Jackson, and Ronald Jackson, and Eric Jeffrey Owens Sr. The first one I want to start with is my son, Private Brandon Owens. A love for a child. To lose a child is, in my perspective, is a blessing. When the Lord told me that he was not coming back home from the military, I couldn't do but accept it because I knew that it was the Lord's doing. Not perfect, but accepting God's blessing. He was a jewel, my youngest son, someone that I did not even know would even chose to go into the military, but did have that thought to do because he wanted to make a difference in his life and in other people's lives. Those words that I heard from other soldiers had given me comfort that he made difference in their lives. And there was one young lady in particular, she was carrying her first child, and she said Brandon would always make it his business to come by her house to see her before he went to work. So that gave me comfort of knowing that God has taken an angel and he's okay with him. And I rest peacefully knowing that he's with the Lord. Pamela Jackson, my sister, she's a year older than I am, but I was always told that I was the oldest between the two of us. Loved my sister, and she had a very outgoing spirit and character about herself, and she was who she was, Pamela Jackson. Ronald Jackson, my middle, next to the oldest brother, was a king. He always dressed appropriate and ready to go make something happen. Did not have a whole lot of connection with him, but I loved my brother Beaver, and God had called him home, and I accepted that as well. My husband, Eric Jeffrey Owens Sr., did not expect that to happen with him, but who is God? My sovereignty, my hope. That's who has brought me this far.
Hi, I'm Leslie Weaver, and today I'm remembering my husband, Cedric Weaver. Cedric was such a laid-back, easygoing person. As the people say in the olden days, any way the wind blew was cool with him. We were married for 32 years, and one of the funniest, I guess, story that I would want to remember is how we met. My whole family knew that I was terrified of dead people. I wouldn't go to funerals. I didn't even want to go near a funeral home. If I found out that a funeral home was on one street, I would drive down the opposite street. Well, this particular day, my best friend grandfather passed, and I went to his funeral service, and there was Cedric. Now, mind you, I'm terrified of dead people and anybody that deal with dead people. So Cedric talked to my best friend and said, hey, I want to know who she is. What is her name? And mind you, I told her, no, I want no part of him because he deal with the dead people. But needless to say, we were married 32 years, so he wore me down. He won my heart. And so we had a great life together, and we have 3 beautiful children together. And I would say that would be the funniest story that I want to remember, how I end up married to the person that I thought I would have nothing ever to do with.
Hello, my name is LaShonda Guest. I'm here discussing deaths that are hard to get over. And first of all, I want to remember my father, Willie Guest. He died July the 7th, 2019. And he was my everything. You know, I know God's supposed to be my everything, but next to God, my dad was my everything, and I miss him so much. And I want to go on to remember my cousin, McCole Golson. She died August the 28th, 2020. And our birthdays are close by, and we're Scorpios, and her birthday was on the 9th of November, and I really miss her a lot, and this is one that is hard to get over too. And I want to discuss about grieving, because grieving is a thing that all have dealt with, and sometimes it's harder to get over with certain people than it is with others. And I'm giving faith in God, putting my faith in God to give me strength and to hold on and to bear the things that I cannot change.
My name is Melody Cash Weathers, and I am remembering John Lee Adams. Born February 16, 1947, to John Wesley and Sally Lee Adams. He was a graduate of Carver High School, and he served in the United States Army as a paratrooper, and he served 2 terms in Vietnam. The first term with the 101st Airborne, known as the Screaming Eagles, and the second term with the 82nd Airborne. Upon completing his service with the military, he came back to Memphis, Tennessee, and then he was employed with the Army Depot. Next, he got a job with United States Postal Service, where he retired. He received many honors and accolades in both of his careers. In my mind, what I believe his most fulfilling job was being my beloved uncle. I remember him spending lots of time with me. He would take me on drives. This was when, or before, the seatbelt laws. He would sit me on his armrest and wrap his arm around me and allow me to just sit there and look out of the windshield. I felt so safe. He was a sweet and thoughtful man. He knew that I loved fresh flowers, and he would have them delivered to my job. He was my guy, my go-to. If I had been feeling down that particular day, it was common to just receive a text from him saying, "I love you, darling." Or if I was feeling a bit unsure about myself, I would receive a text from him saying, "I'm proud of you. No matter how old you get, you'll always be my baby." He was more than my uncle, more like my father. He never offered unsolicited advice, but if asked, he would give it to me straight, and I appreciated that. He imparted lots of wisdom, knowledge, but most importantly, unconditional love. In 2006, I lost my mother, his baby sister. And if I was struggling or having a hard time grieving her loss, he would utter these words, "Remember the good times." The loss of my uncle has left a great void in my life, but I will hold firm to his words, "Remember the good times," because I have plenty of those. I love you, Uncle Daddy John. Rest well.
My name is LaTrette Scott. I'm here to honor my husband, William Scott. William was a good husband. He was a good father to our kids. And most of all, he was my best friend. I will always miss him. I love him dearly. My days and nights are hard and difficult, but through it all, I pray. I pray all the time. I miss him. I will always love him. And he will always be remembered for me. That's all.
Vivian Green Shaka Mamadou, one of my 6 sisters. She died in June of this year after a brief illness. I don't know if it was a virus or the cause or not. All I know is she went to the hospital, and not long afterward, I received a call from one of my siblings saying she had passed. It was a sudden occurrence. She hadn't been sick. She did suffer from mobility limitations, but she could walk when she really wanted to. Vivian grew up in Klondike and lived most of her life there. She attended school at Klondike through the junior high, and then went next door to Northside High School. Vivian was never a wallflower. She was in the band and in everything else that was going on. I don't know much about her teen years because I had left home by then and was busy trying to get my life together. It's funny how faith can play a part in our lives, but without it, where would we be? Vivian worked at Universal Life Insurance Company and advanced to become a supervisor. Much to my disgust, she and my first wife worked there and became bosom buddies. When Universal Life closed, it put a lot of women out of professional jobs. I don't recall how long after it was before she started to drive a Memphis City school bus. I believe it was this job that caused her to develop problems with her legs. I was away for some 20 years because of my job, relocating eventually to Richmond, Virginia. I initially went as an intern in the Professional Enhancement Program at the Defense Logistics Agency headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. This assignment was supposed to be for 1 year, but lasted for an additional 2 months. Upon completion of my internship, my former job in Memphis had relocated to Richmond, Virginia. I was in a grocery store in Richmond, Virginia, when the man in front of me spoke. I immediately replied, "You're not from Richmond." He asked, "How did you know?" I told him, people in Richmond don't talk to people they don't know. He said he was from down south. After dragging it out of him, he said he was from Memphis and lived on Alaska. I told him I grew up on the street right across from Northside High School. We chatted and departed, never expecting to see each other again. Some time passed before I was flagged down by someone in a car behind me. It was the same man I had talked to in the store. He was so excited because he had just returned from Memphis, visiting a sick brother. His brother, Doctor, was my son, Dr. Christopher Green. We had a long conversation standing there. I don't remember at what point he asked me if I was related to that large family of Greens in Klondike. Upon finding that out, he began to name everybody in my family. He even knew who my Vivian's son's father was. I didn't know that. Small world. In December of 2010, I retired from the government and moved back to Memphis. My wife and I bought a home, joined First Baptist Church, and life has been good ever since. But this is supposed to be about my sister, not me. I needed to say all of that to set the stage for where we are today. Once Vivian became sedentary, it took a toll on her overall health. When I resumed contact with her, she was living with my second oldest sister, Jacqueline Green Gray, down in Whitehaven. This was a tedious arrangement because Jacqueline was caring for an alien husband, 2 needed daughters, a son, and grandchildren. She retired from Baptist Hospital where she had worked for some 40 years and finished her career as a surgical nurse. From Jacqueline's house, Vivian was moved to Mary Green's Macklin's house. These 2 sisters were in order. My parents had 12 children, 6 boys and 6 girls, namely Willie, Betty Jo Green Wallace, James Green, deceased, Fred Green, John Wesley Green, Jacqueline Green Gray, Frank Green, Edith Green Mamadou, and Mary Green Macklin, Vivian Green Shaka Mamadou, Stanley Green, and Sharon Green Lynn. Mary arranged for Vivian to move into the Graceland Apartments across from Hillcrest High School. My nephew Alf Wallace ran railroads and made trips out for food for her. My wife and I bought her a microwave, television, and small refrigerator. The apartment was not built to accommodate a motorized wheelchair, and that prevented her from getting into the little kitchen. Really didn't like the area, but she was fine with it. I talked with what appeared to be the local gang leader and bribed him to keep an eye on her. Vivian became sick suddenly and was carried to the hospital. She never came out alive, and we are not sure, but I've always thought that she might have had the virus. Again, that is my third from youngest sister, Vivian Green Shaka Mamadou.
Hi, my name is Sophronia Ward, and I'm going to remember today my loved ones. I had my nephew, Jalen McGowan, who lost his life due to gun violence, and a few of my first cousins, my mother's sister's children that we grew up together. It was two boys, Kenneth McGowan and Otis Thomas. We were very close, and my nephew just was, he was just wonderful. He was 21 when he lost his life, and just full of joy, getting ready to go to college, and he didn't get the opportunity to do that. And he was just always, he was quiet like his dad, but he always had a smile on his face whenever we got together for gatherings. He always had that big smile on his face and, just grinning all the time, not a big talker. And my first cousin, we just, had a lot of laughter from growing up. We grew up in the, sister's children. We were at each other's house all the time, and we just had a ball growing up. The boys in here, they had a big family. It was only 4 of us, but they had 7 in their family, so we just had a good time. And then my love of my life, my husband, Donald Ward, lost him almost 3 years ago. It still hurts. It's getting better. It's getting a lot better, but it's just the pain is still there. It still hurts so bad because I miss him terribly. The family just miss him because he was just, when I said he was my soulmate and the love of my life, he was. I knew God sent him, and it was funny how God sent him to me. I saw him in dreams when we met. The conversations and things that we had together when we went out on our first couple of dates, it was just, I had already saw them in a dream, and it was just funny because, I would tell him that he knew things that I was thinking and what I was talking about before I even, said them, when we confessed our love to each other that first year, after the first few months. He said, I got something to tell you. He said, I got something to tell you too. He said, what, you love me? I said, yeah, I'm falling in love with you. And the holidays are just so wonderful. It's hard, but it's wonderful because we laugh. Me and the daughters and the family, we laugh because he always made me make a list of all the things I needed at the store before he went, because he was the grocery shopper. And I would make that list, and every time I make that list and he come back home, I'd be to forget something. So this was just a tradition that went on year after year after year. We was married for 28 years, and the family would always tease him. He always tell me, Frone, he would call me Frone. Frone ain't going to the store no more. You had it on the list. Why you forgot that? I said, baby, I just forgot. I'm sorry. And he'll tell me he ain't going, and then the next few minutes there he go, babe, I'm going to the store. What else you need? So that's what, we laugh about every year during the holidays, that I would always forget stuff, and he'll go back to the store probably 4 or 5 times within that day, getting stuff that I had forgot. So I miss that man so much, but I know one day I'm going to get to smile with him and hold him again and kiss him, as long as I keep trusting in God and keep living for the Lord. I know I'm going to see all of them again, my mom and sisters and uncles and dads. I'm going to see all of them. But I just miss that man something terrible, y'all. I do. Donald Wayne Ward, I miss you and I love you.
I'm Lumbria Collier, and today I would like to remember first my sister Sharon Holmes McNeil. My favorite memory of Sharon is not a one memory, it's just her teaching me, her loving me, and like days I'm at work and I'm typing. I remember the other day I was at work, I was typing really fast, and a young lady said to me, oh, you type so good. And I remember when I was in school, and Sharon, the teacher didn't teach me how to type. It was actually Sharon who sat beside me after school with a ruler and taught me how to type. And I would also like to remember my husband, Leander Collier Jr. I remember when we first met, even before anyone knew we were dating or anything, how we sat out and we talked and we became friends, and we sat down and we said, this is what we want, this is what we're gonna have, and that's the life that we lived together for 20 years. And I thank God for blessing me with two people who could show me what true godly love was in two different forms.
Good morning, First Baptist. I'm Dennis Murphy, Sr., and I'm here to speak today about my brother, Andrew James Harvey, who passed away this past June at the age of 73. Andrew and I go back to high school. He and I were high school classmates. Andrew was a quiet, reserved person. You hardly knew he was in a room unless you saw him stand up. We graduated high school in 1964. And of course, Andrew went on to his various occupations which he held. He was married to my wife's sister, and they were married for 25 years. Andrew was quiet but smart. He was intelligent. He worked in the city of Memphis in the HARP program regarding housing in the community of Memphis and county of Shelby. He helped a lot of people in that position. He eventually was moved to a manager of that particular area. I think it was referred to as the HARP program. Andrew was a lover of automobiles. He had a Corvette automobile. There was a club around Memphis known as a Corvette Club. He was a participant in the Corvette Club. And they would ride around the city, all the Corvettes lined up together. Some of you may have seen them. And they would eventually get down on Bill Street with the Corvettes, showing them off. And they were impressive looking. The Chevrolet Corvette was a very distinctive looking automobile. And Andrew loved automobiles. Andrew was previously married before he married my wife's sister. His first wife died. However, they did have a son. His name was Jason Andrew Harvey. After his first wife died, he married my wife's sister, Joan Marie Harvey. And for many years, as we moved into retirement, Andrew fell ill and gradually fell ill, and he had dementia. I guess that's a form of Alzheimer's disease. So he gradually deteriorated. However, he was not lacking for care. His wife took extremely great care of him. She was devoted to taking care of him, providing everything that he needed. Sometimes she needed to be away from home sometime, and I would go out and sit with Andrew. Excuse me. I would sit with him and converse with him. And with his condition being what it was, sometimes he would get off base, sometimes he would just wander off. So I tried to do things that would keep his attention. And I thought the best way to do that was to use music. Music is therapeutic. We used to say years ago, music is calm or soothe a savage beast. But music is therapeutic. So I understood and knew about various types and all types of music, from the classics to the series symphonic music, concert music, jazz music, blues music. And what I would do was sitting with Andrew, we would talk about music. And I would actually play songs for him while I was there. To kind of keep him calm, keep him stationary, so he wouldn't wander away. And some of the music I put on, he didn't care for. However, there was one type of music that I would put on, he kind of liked for a minute. He kind of liked gospel music for a minute. Then I played a little jazz music for him. He kind of liked jazz music for a minute. But then I would put on some down home blues. And when I played down home blues, now that really got Andrew's attention. He loved down home blues and blues music. As a matter of fact, he had a jukebox in his home where he would play the music that he loved. And most of the songs that he had on them were blues songs. So anytime we'd visit our home and we were in a partying mood, he would kind of have some of that music playing. So it kind of put everybody in a good mood. So he loved that. So I was able to keep his attention, keep him calm, keep him in place by playing blues music for him. And any song came up just about, he knew. But again, as he aged and his body began to deteriorate, he lost a lot of his physical abilities, bodily functions, and that seemed to increase his wife's care for him. He ended up being on hospice care, and nurses would come by to see him and to kind of help take care of him also, and provide for his needs. But the best care that he got during the last days of his life was from his wife. You know, God has no hands but our hands, and no feet but our feet. And she used her hands and her mind in tending to Andrew and keeping him clean, keeping him dressed. Anytime they wanted to go out and he was going with her, she was taking him with her, he would be neatly dressed. You would never know his condition a lot of times. Andrew received the best of care till finally he just began to decrease and diminish in physical abilities. He would just fall asleep and sleep for long periods of time. Just sleep for long periods of time. And finally he just slept away in June of this year. I think his passing was on June the 25th of this year. And John prepared a nice homegoing service for him. It was very well attended by family and by friends. Even during the COVID conditions that exist today. But we were spaced out and everybody had their mask on. But he had a very nice homegoing. And the preacher spoke well of him and his life. So we will remember Andrew because he was a great part of our family. He was actually my brother-in-law, but I would never use the term brother-in-law. He's my brother. And that's what I would use. You remember Mount Vernon Baptist Church, and that's where the funeral was held. He joined there in 1970 until his health failed and he was no longer able to attend. So Andrew again will be long remembered by our family. And we remember him.
My name is Arlene Pete Tate. I remember my brother, Joe Henry Pete. Joe Henry was born July the 20th, 1950, in a small rural town of Clarksdale, Arkansas. He realized that if he graduated, there would not be anyone that would help take my mother shopping because my father wasn't the one that had the patience to shop with her. So he taught me how to drive before he graduated from high school. And upon graduating from high school, he relocated to Benton Harbor, Michigan.
And there he was drafted into the Army, and he did his basic training in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And after that, during the Vietnam War, he was sent to Baumholder, Germany. And in 1972, he was honorably discharged as an E4 specialist, and he went back to Benton Harbor, where he met the love of his life and married Brenda Woods. And on this union, they had one son, Derek. And I must say that my brother Joe, if he had been a female, would have been the best big sister that I would ever wish for. He gave me a lot of tips on life, even on dating. And he just had a kindred spirit. He was willing to help anyone without any obligation at all in return. And so even when he went to Michigan, he later was baptized on the Highland Avenue Seventh-day Adventist Church, where he became a deacon, and there where he served until the day he passed. He also was a person that just loved giving. And I must say, after the death of my mother, he became the peacekeeper in our family. There were always two siblings that were always in disagreement with each other, but Joe would always step in and became the peacekeeper. And this much I loved him, and I try to emulate his spirit and his kindness today. And I must say, on April the 12th, Joe had erratic breathing, and he was rushed to the emergency room. And from there, he was placed in ICU. And on April the 4th of 2020, he passed of COVID-19. This was a devastating blow to me as well as to our family. And today, Joe will be greatly missed. I love him dearly, will forever have his kind spirit in my heart. Joe was a veteran as well, and Veteran Day is coming up. I know you're not here, Joe, but thank you for your service.
My name is Ann Lemon, and I am here memorializing my mother, Alta Lemon, who was on this earth for 95 years, and I just consider it a blessing. Well, I was told to give a short story on my mother. There are so many. Those of you who knew her knew she was a treat to be around. My niece just gave me a story this morning, but I'm going to tell the one about, I was 9th or 10th grade, and report cards had just come out, and I didn't make the honor roll that 6 weeks, and so my mother was looking at the card, and she says, "How are these grades gonna look on a registrar's desk when you go to college?" I said, "I'm not going to college." And at that time, I really considered myself not going. The next thing I knew, I was in a corner in the hall. My mama had the broom. She said, "Oh yes, you are going." So needless to say, I went and graduated in 4 years, and I can thank my mama for it.
Today I like to remember my father, Willie Dean Adams Sr. My father was a very hardworking man. I grew up in a family of 6, and my father displayed affectionate love for us, but also taught us discipline, taught us love, and at the later days of his life, he taught me how to forgive. Our relationship was strenuous. However, in my adulthood, my dad taught me how to love and forgive. So today, I just would like to say thank you for teaching me how to forgive and how to love again. My fondest memories of my dad was I was the only girl out of 6 boys, so whatever I said goes, basically. But he also gave me the drive to still wanting to get things on my own and have things of my own. So that was also my drive to become the person that I am today, and still have goals ahead of me that I would like to accomplish. So once again, I want to remember my father. We miss him terribly. We miss him so very much. His affectionate smile and his jokes. So I just want to say thank you, Daddy, for instilling me a kind heart, a gentle heart, a forgiving and loving heart. And you will always be remembered. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is William Edwards. William Marvin Edwards. People call me William and Marvin. But this afternoon, I'm going to tell you about my brother-in-law. He was a very special person in my life. I met him for the first time when I was about 14 years old. He and my older brother worked together. And then he started dating my sister. A few years after that, they married, and they were married for 52 years. He was a hard-working man. He's provided good for his family, and he cared and loved everybody. He had a fantastic singing voice, and anybody that know him already know that all you had to do is ask and he would sing. He loved his children. He provided and sent them to college. Something that he did that people don't do, that black people didn't do most of that day, was that he gave them credit cards when they went to college. He had to bawl them out about overusing it, but he knew they was away from home and they needed to eat or whatever, so he gave them credit cards. His grandchildren, they all loved him and he loved them. He was dependable. He would pick them up from school. I mean, they always had a babysitter. Whenever he was available, he would keep he was gonna take care of them children. He loved the zoo, and he took all his children and grandchildren to the zoo, and all of them have those studio pictures with Memphis Zoo over the top, and all of them on that same bench at different times. You saw as from the young Leroy, or we call him Junior, from the young Junior to the old Junior with the grandchildren. And he loved McDonald's, and and all the grandchildren loved McDonald's. They kept McDonald's in business. But I really liked hanging out with him. When I was in high school, I ran track. And I didn't know he was going to, and this was before he and my sister were even married. But I looked up and who was cheering me on but him. And he came to a few of my track meets. But it was always good to see him, and he always thought about other people. And my niece, well, the day that they buried him, she planted a rose bush in her backyard. And she called it the Somerset Rose Bush. And I thought that this would be good for that. It is so good to be thought about and loved after you have played your final act in life's opera and you are presented roses. So she presented him, which he got plenty of roses before he left here, but it was a rose after. And it will be there for years. Thank you.
My name is Yolanda L. Hawkins, and I'm speaking on my mother, Essie Jackson. And I want to tell y'all that my mother died October 3rd, 2015, but she have left a lot of memories here. And I hope to follow in her footsteps, even though I know I'm not going to be able to fill her shoes. But she did instill in us the good things in life. She said there are going to be bad times, but some people are going to do you wrong, but always try to see the best in everybody. And always forgive, even though you might not forget, but still forgive. She was the matriarch of our family, and ever since she's been gone, it's like we're trying to keep up with what she does, what she did, but it's not easy. But she did, she took us to church. She didn't, just send us to church. She took us to church. And we were there for every service. but it taught us as we grew up to stay in church and how we instilled in our children to go to church. And so a lot of stuff that she taught us, we remember, even the great-grandchildren remember. So I always love my mom and remember my mother, no matter how long it be. But one thing I can say, she was a woman of God. And she believed in God, and she believed in everybody. And our house was the house of the neighborhood where if you wanted to eat or you didn't have nowhere to sleep, you could come over our house and she would fix a big dinner for everybody. So those were the good days, and she left a lot of good memories. So her memories will live on. So to you, Miss Essie Jackson, I love you.
Okay, my name is Richard Fisher. My loved one is Joan Marie Fisher, who is my mother. I'd like to first off thank Pastor DeBose and the care committee for all of the calls and prayers and texts I received from church members, fraternity brothers, leaders, members, all of that. That meant a lot to me during my mother's time in transition. I would also like to take this opportunity to say, death is inevitable, and the Lord gives us different ways of dealing with things like that. And just as a memory, the last time I prayed with my mother and my sister, I gave the best prayer that I thought I could give. And as soon as I said amen, my mother started praying. And it was an interesting prayer because she began by thanking God for my sister and I and how we had taken care of her. And then she went on to talk about our children and the Lord blessing them like he had blessed her. And I couldn't help but think about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the generations that would be blessed because of the faithfulness of the parents. And so when she got done praying, I saw something that I'd never seen before, and that was she let go of our hands and she started praising God. She started thanking him. So it was a one-way conversation, but it was a conversation that my sister and I absolutely understood because she was being thankful for all God had done for her, and equally as important, thankful for what the Lord continues to do for my sister and I. And I am eternally grateful to First Baptist Broad for the support and love and care and the spiritual development that in a time of great turbulence that we had a lot of peace and comfort. And I'm thankful for that.
Yes, sir. I am Johnny McKay, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my deceased loved ones who has gone on before us. God chose to bring them in when he chose to bring them in. And I'm hopeful and prayerful that they were ready to meet him, because that day is certainly one that we have not the privilege of cancellation. So if we are not ready to meet our Maker, then we had better get ready, because that day is surely coming. I've had a few deaths in the family in the last 2 or 3 years, but I'm grateful to God for having given me the opportunity to spend the time with him that he gave me. I realize he didn't have to, but he did, and I'm grateful for that. A little bit more than 2 years ago, I buried my third oldest brother, Louis McKay. Louis was one that we said was the black sheep in the family, but I guess every family has one of those. But Louis was a kind and decent person, a loving brother, and one that we all cherished and loved very much. And we thank God for the legacy in which he left. And then shortly after that, my third oldest sister, Ruby Lee Williams. Ruby stayed with us for a mighty long time. And I'm grateful for that, for Ruby and her family. Ruby had a blessed life, lived a long life. She was one that was always smiling whenever you saw her. And Ruby loves to drive. Ruby loved to drive so much that it didn't matter to Ruby what the destination was. All she wanted to know, where do you want to go? and Ruby was ready to take you. She lived a kind and decent life, and I'm grateful to God for having given her to us. And I thank Him for the relationship that we developed over the years. Next was a niece of mine who transitioned last year. That was Gloria Ann Brown. Gloria was the last of that family. Mother died 10 years ago in May of this year. Father died 20 years ago in June of this year. And then she has a sister left, which is the last threads of that family. Gloria was one that you would speak with her, speak to her. She would tell you less, yes, she's listening, but her actions spoke otherwise. But she was dear and kind to all of us. And Gloria, too, was one that loved to smile and loved to keep things going. I thank God for Gloria, and we, too, have missed her, and we will continue to miss her. But I know that God had made provisions that one day we'll all get an opportunity to once again have that reunion in the place which He has gone as He told us and prepared. And then the last one was just this past weekend. A young man by the name of Anzio Burtz, nephew of mine. Anzio was 41 years old. Unfortunately, he was taken this past weekend. And I'm grateful to God for the life and the legs in which Anzio lived. Anzio made it known to me and other members of the family that he had determined to give his life to Christ. Now that was encouraging news to me, and I'm grateful for that. Anzio, although being 41, he had no children, but he loved all children. And I thank God for the life and legacy that he lived, and the lifestyle that he had. I'm grateful to God for having loaned him to us for 41 years. And I know that he's smiling with God from heaven. And I look forward to seeing them all again. I thank you for this opportunity to speak on these four. And I know that hopefully that God will give me another opportunity to say other things about other people. Thank you. Good evening and good night.
I would like to share one of my greatest memories of my uncle, John Henry Bland. He's a loving father, husband, granddad, great-great-granddad, and have plenty of nieces and nephews. And one of my fond memories is, regardless of what kind of day it is, he's always gonna have fun. We really gonna miss him because he was life of the party, life of the family reunion. He was just one of them persons that you always would look for to see, and he cared for his family as well. I had another brother who passed on, and I just know they just rejoicing together now because we know they always gonna put on the show. And I just like to just say, those are the fun memories. He leave 2 sisters and a brother, 2 in Mississippi and 1 in Detroit, Michigan, and I know they miss him dearly. They took it real hard, like the rest of the family. And like I said, he has a daughter and a son and great-great-grandkids and grandkids. And we just like to say we miss him. That's some of my fond memories, especially during the family reunion time. He's the fun pack, and we really miss him. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Mother Mayola Hall. I have been a member of this church here for 70 years. I'm a mother of the church. I am speaking in memory of my oldest sister, Leola Hudson, of Pleasant Green Baptist Church of Sardis, Mississippi, and my brother, Reverend Willie J. Morgan, pastor of Christ the Redeemer Fellowship Church here in Memphis, Tennessee. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever floods my soul. We love you too, and will never forget you. We thank God for your Christian lives that you lived before us. We miss you, but we will see you again in that great getting up morning when we all see Jesus.
Okay, hi, First Baptist family.
My name is Diane Morrow, and I'm here to give a brief testimony of how God has delivered me. And I like to say delivered because, you know, the things I used to do, I don't do anymore. So, you know, He has delivered me. I really want to thank First Baptist and the You Are Not Alone ministry and everybody that's behind this, because this was a great opportunity and a great honor to speak, because I want to be able to share with other people. If you're going through something like addiction or depression or abuse, you know, you don't have to live that life. You have a choice. You know, I grew up in a real, you know, strict family. My mom and dad was pretty strict, but then on the other hand, we did have fun. We had our parties and everything. But at some point, you know, the party has to end. So when I got older, I guess I was in my 30s, you know, I had to realize that, you know, I have children now, I have a job now. So, I mean, you know, you got to cut it. So what really inspired me for the most is working with recovering people. I do that part-time, but also my church home here at First Baptist and this ministry. And I really want to give a shout out to Miss Shep and Miss Euler, because, and Miss Joyce Gordon, there was quite a few of them that really encouraged me. And, you know, they know my favorite scriptures, Jeremiah 29:11. Because when I came to First Baptist, I was still kind of complaining about, you know, how did God do this? And, you know, He does this. And she said, baby, God knew what He was going to do for you before you was born. So I love that scripture, and I love the message that Pastor Norman gives us on a regular basis too, how we have to do God's will. You can't enjoy your life or have a life doing what the world wants you to do and doing what God wants you to do. I mean, you can have your fun, but you got to cut it. It's got to be a limit. So I don't know how much time I have, but anyway, I don't want to take a lot of time up, but this is a great way to live, living for the Lord. And that's what I tell people. You know, like I say, I'm delivered. And a lot of things I used to do, I can't go into them all because, you know, that's not really important. It's that I'm delivered and blessed, and I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to share.
Hi, I'm Sidney Shields. I'm here just reminiscing about my uncle, Henry Shields. He transitioned in April. In the circle of Church of God in Christ, he was known as Prophet Shields, or always known as the wheelchair preacher. He went all over the country preaching the word of God. And one thing about him, he knew the word. One fond memory of my uncle, he always cracking jokes. You're feeling down, he got a word, he got a joke to lift your spirits. He transitioned in April, but I also had one transfer in December. So, but yet and still, we thank God that he received them. He did not take them. So I just thank God for the presence of my uncle and thank him for receiving me to heaven. I miss him. God bless you.
My name is Willie Owens, and I come to share with you all about my older sister, which was like a second mother to me. I'd say she had a bucket list because we did a lot of stuff together, a lot of traveling, and she loved to travel. She loved to do things. She kept us all busy. And I wrote down a few things that we did on the bucket list. One thing, she had a motor home, and we all got in the motor home and went to California, and it was about 14 of us in the motor home. So I call it a Beverly Hills trip, Beverly Hillbillies trip. And another one that we did, my first time on an airplane was her first time on an airplane, and she was afraid to go, so she came and got me. And we went to Chicago to my grandfather's funeral. And both of us was on the plane, and both of us were scared, but we made it there and we made it back okay. Except when we left here, we had on short sleeves. When we got out of the plane in Chicago, we almost froze to death before we got our coat on. And the third thing that I wrote down on the list was my sister. As the Bible says, I feel like she finished her course. So I say that because I know in this age and this time with COVID-19 and people losing loved ones, I just want to let you all know that to keep your mind on the happy things that your loved ones did. Even though they're gone, you still can have peace and you still can have joy because you can think of all the good things that you did. And one more thing I'd like to share with you all that my sister did, and I get tickled when I think about it, is I don't know if any of you know about muscadines. My sister went to the store somewhere and found some muscadine, and she brought me a little sack to the house. And I thought that was so funny. She went and found some muscadine and brought them to me. But my sister was the kind of person like that. And one thing she did, she always came and got my children and took them to Vacation Bible School. So, and even now, those same children, they're at First Baptist with us. Thank you.
For waking me up this morning. Lord, I appreciate your love. And for keeping me all through the day. that I have cried in my life. Y'all, I hate to think about it tonight, but what would my life be? What would it be? What would it be without him? Oh, it would be very, very dark and dreary when I am sad. Nobody but Jesus can cheer me. Oh, when I'm lonely. Anybody ever been really lonely? He would my comfort be. That's why I stand before you tonight, not ashamed to say I'm grateful. I said I'm grateful. Truly grateful.
I pray that these stories have really brought joy and enlightenment and maybe just a little smile to your face. We have walked with those and we will continue to pray with those whom have lost loved ones. Some we have known about, some we did not know about. But it is so important during this season, especially those whom have left in this season, where we have not had personal and intimate time to share together, that everyone's story is important. God bless you and God keep you. And remember, if there is no huge celebration of life, you keep telling the story. Put the pictures up, share with people about your loved one, and let them know that their story is a part of your life and it is an important part to share.